So, gentlemen, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for bequeathing your time. I think this is it's about time we let the shareholders out in their glory, and they can share their insights and their vision for Coraggio. So, okay, so gentlemen, I'm going to kick off with just to set the context, device technology. So 1992, basically improving the longevity and the lives of people, which is very commendable, but doing that by using leading edge technology. Over 200 trusted brands and 1,000 skilled staff, Australia, New Zealand, and Asia. So let's kick off. I don't know who wants to answer this one first, but I mean, I know that journey is over and that business has been sold, but saving the lives using cutting edge technology, how did that journey begin?
Kevin, we'll start with that.
Wow, that's a big question. So it goes back a long, long way in that Peter and myself and our deceased friend and business partner all spent our entire adult lives in the healthcare industry, which is the industry of medical devices. And we're all at different companies at different times, and events happened such that in 1989, 1990, an eternity ago, we happened to have our paths cross each other. And we were all familiar with each other. We all had some relationship. And at that point in 1989, 1990, we said, why don't we do something together instead of being subservient to multinational companies that had subsidiaries in this country. And so that's where it all started, Michelle.
So, what was it all started you coming together, culminating together, but was there a business that one of you was already doing in cutting edge device technology, medical and health, that you there expanded on, or did you come up with a completely new innovative idea that none of you were directly working on?
Each of our respective roles in other companies was always about medical devices and technology. We chose to walk away from those companies through succession of circumstances. Peter, a sale of a company, me being acquired, our other friend and business partner, John McQuillan, also being usurped. And so those circumstances led us to start from scratch. So we had no technology, we had no business, we had no product, but we decided we would launch into something together. Peter's experience was largely cardiovascular and neurology. My experience and John McQuillan's was largely orthopedic. And so they were the linchpins of the original business when we started.
So let's fast track 30 years on, and may I ask both of you, upon reflection in the rear vision mirror, what would have you done differently?
Well, I've written down here, I wouldn't do anything differently. I mean, as you go through business, you learn from the business experience of improving things, but I think the way we did business and would continue through to today.
And from those key learnings, Peter, what in hindsight did you see that were challenges or obstacles that, if you knew then what you know now, and being part of the Coraggio community perhaps, that you would have done differently back then though?
I think there are three things, I've written them down. One is underfunding. Most businesses are underfunded. Basically, you know, if a business goes quickly, you have issues with funding. And if you go to the bank, sometimes the bank will say, look, I'm sorry, I have to take a mortgage over your house. If you already have a house mortgage, what do you do? So underfunding of businesses is my number one, or up one of the top priorities. The second thing is management. You know, when you grow a business and you have 3 people, it's very easy to manage a business. When you're growing a business and you've got 30 people, if you don't have the right management in place, and this doesn't mean the founder management, this means the management of the business, that people report to you. If you don't have the right management in place, you're going to senior management. You're surely not going to fail, but you're not going to grow the business as you want it to grow. The third thing I've got here basically is buying into the wrong businesses. When you're growing a business, sometimes you look at opportunities, whether it be an agency or going into another business and saying, am I going into that business? You have to do a lot of due diligence on the business or the agencies to make sure that that's going to be a good fit for your business, because a lot of businesses do that. It's a bad fit and they fail considerably.
Mm. So what led to the sale of Device Technologies?
Can I backtrack one minute about what would we do differently? What would we change? And I agree with Peter wholeheartedly. We wouldn't change much at all. And we were three very different people with very different circumstances, but the circumstances that led us together and kept us together for the last 35 years were all necessary ingredients to do so. And so I wouldn't change those for all the tea in China. However, there were a couple of learnings. We had no intention of developing our own sales force. We appointed sub-distributors in every region of Australia and New Zealand, and it was their role to create the sales. They became somewhat disgruntled around the year 2000. So we were 8 years into the Device Technologies company, and we found out that they were working, in the background against our greater cause. And so within 2 weeks, I flew around the country and sacked them all. And within another 2 weeks, we appointed 35 new salespeople. By Christmas that year in 2000, we sacked half of them and employed another 45, and we had about 65 salespeople by Christmas 2000. So that was a business, that was an opportunity that we didn't see coming, nor did we seek it. But it was a very clear message about being in control of the customer and what you deliver to the customer and what you promise the customer. We weren't in control for our first 8 years, and part of our success, I think, is that we took control in the year 2000, 8 years later. The second thing that, again, we wouldn't change, Peter and I played with the international currencies from which all our manufactured goods came. And so mostly US at that time, Europe, UK, Japan. And so we didn't hedge at all. We had no foreign exchange policy. And when the GFC hit in the September of 2008, we lost $6 million between September and December 2008. And that was money we didn't have to lose. In the January 2009, Westpac issued notice that they are considering foreclosure on the loans we had with them. And so we thought we were pretty smart until September 2008, hedging and doing our own foreign exchange. That was a very valuable lesson. And we ended up getting into bed with a company called Noah's Rule in the March of 2009. And so they took over the policy, if you like, delivered a policy on foreign exchange. But again, Michelle, I just say that because that was a trap we didn't see possible. Did not see possible. So what is the learning from that? Westpac complained bitterly to us for all of those years, the prior years, the 15 years prior, that we were a lazy balance sheet company. We didn't borrow enough, and we should be borrowing more. And in January 2009, they issued notice. So there is a definite learning that, and Peter was always saying, I'm Scottish, and we watch our money and cash is king. Well, God, it's still good today, that saying. And it was good then, but we didn't follow it as strictly as we should have, and we would today. We would today, I assure you. Sorry,
So,
moving on 30 years.
I just want to pull on a thread that you mentioned before we move back to 30 years. But Kevin, with the how did you mitigate the foreign exchange risk?
In the policy that we took, we forward bought currency for 3, 6, 9 and 12 months. And so according to the sales budget and the senior management that Peter referred to, their forecasts, we would have a range of consumable goods and capital equipment At 12 months out, we would forecast maybe 50% of our needs. At 9 months out, we would reforecast maybe 70% of our needs. 6 months out, maybe 75, 80%. 3 months out, 90, 95%. And so that money was parked in that currency for those goods.
And what about, so these goods are coming from all over, you know, for various different countries. What about force majeure, and were they coming out in shipping containers? What about freighting? What about quarantine? Did someone else handle all of those procurement logistic roles, or did you guys also do that yourselves?
No, we had contractors who handled all the goods inwards.
Okay.
And yes, because they were medical goods, we always had a priority in any shipping issues. We had products that ran out from time to time, and the government would provide us support to our shipping colleagues to make sure that our products were prioritised.
Okay, all right, that works in your favour. Were they TGA or SFDA approved goods?
All TGA requirements were met.
Okay.
FDA is a different requirement to TGA, but TÜV in Germany, CE mark in Europe, FDA in US, TGA in Australia, complied with all.
Yep, and SFDA in China. So, okay, and what about the Australian standards versus the ISO standards for these goods?
Sorry, the standards?
The Australian standards as
Yes.
opposed to the international standards of these goods? Did they comply with the Australian standards, or were they made to ISO standards?
That's a very good question, very relevant question, because one of our big money spenders was a steriliser that didn't meet Australian standards. And we had to fight tooth and nail in Canberra for considerable time before the TGA would approve our steriliser as meeting the standards. So, but for everything else we did, as long as we had the TGA approval, we were compliant with Australian standards.
Okay, all right. That's an interesting story, that whole journey and the key challenges that you faced and how you addressed them. And okay, so 30 years on, well, you sold the business, what, 6 years ago?
Yeah. About
So,
7 years ago, yep.
So Kevin, out of all the businesses that you have run or been part of in your career, your illustrious career, which business would you say kind of gave you the greatest you know, joy and you know, satisfaction, and you know, it was meaningful?
Well, I think, Michelle, there's no guessing required for that answer. We had such a joy at Device Technologies. We had lots of ups and downs. We had great mateship, we had great support, and we had a lot of fun. And you know, if you can be successful in business whilst you're having fun, then that's a pretty neat, you know, aspect of your business life, and we always had fun. We always had fun.
Well, as the old adage says, if you like your vocation, it's like being on a vacation. So,
Yeah.
So I guess that leads us a nice segue to the original question. Why did 7 years ago? Why did you sell the business?
We sold the business because our partner John McQuillan passed away. We'd had the business for something like 20-something years. John passed away. The business at that stage was turning over $600 million. It's a very valuable business.
And how many staff?
And we had something like 650 staff. And John's estate came to us after a couple of years and said, well, you know, he's a shareholder in the business, a third shareholder. What are we going to do? In other words, we have to pay out. For us to pay out basically the funds for the business, we didn't have the funding to pay out the money for the business. So we actually had a private equity group involved in the business. We took the private equity group on at around 30% of the business very early. The reason for that was that rather than have to use all our own money, we used private equity money. And the private equity money liked our business. We grew their money basically every year by about 20%. So they were very happy with what we did. They were in the medical device area. And we also didn't have to pull our own money back into the business. So, and they didn't have control of the business. The owners still controlled the business. So when John passed away, basically the private equity came to us and said, look, we're interested in buying the business if you want to sell the business. And we had quite a negotiation going through that to say, okay, well, this is what we want to do. To be quite truthful to you, if we didn't have that situation, we probably would have still been running the business today, because we enjoyed the business grew, it was a fun business, we were going forward. The competition basically were very wary of us, so we wouldn't have sold it. However, we had the situation where the estate wanted the money, the funds and the money. We didn't have the cash of that business, it was all in the business itself, so we sold to private equity.
So to be clear, the probate forced you to sell because the money was bequeathed to incumbents, and they didn't want to keep the John's equity. They wanted their payout.
They wanted their payout.
Right. Okay. And so what happened next?
Well, what we did basically, we met with the private equity people. In fact, the people that basically had the initial 35 to 32% of the business, and they said yes, they'd like to buy the business. And so we negotiated basically the value of the business. We also negotiated at that stage, we said, look, if we're out, basically, we will stay on with the business for a couple of years to basically have a transition,
Yep.
with private equity, but long term, we don't want to be in a business basically that has private equity there, because we were owners of the business, we ran the business, and we liked what we did.
And entrepreneurial business. So.
It's an entrepreneurial business. So basically what we did is we sold the business over a long negotiation to the private equity group, and we stayed on for 2 years.
And because of that, Michelle, we also decided we'd do a succession plan. And so prior to our departure, we bedded down our Director of Sales and Marketing as the CEO and our Financial Controller as the 2IC. And
I must make a comment on that. Basically, the private equity came to us and said, look, we've got someone from outside that we'd like to put in and basically CEO of the business. We said that would be a mistake. We think basically for our customers and for the business itself, it'd be better if we've got someone in the business to be able to promote a person from within the business.
Yeah.
And we did that. The CEO of the business, who is still there currently, basically was promoted from sales and marketing up into the CEO's role.
Yeah. So you provided continuity and consistency to your existing stakeholders and clients.
yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
couldn't have said it better.
Thank you, Kevin. So 2 years you stayed on. So now we're talking 4 or 5 years. How's that business going since you totally departed over the last 4 to 5 years?
I'll just turn away.
It's going well. The business is now $1 billion now, close to $1 billion. They've lost some agencies, they've gained some agencies. They bought a lot of companies, basically to put under the scaling for the business. So the business is doing well. Financially, basically, we don't get access to the financial figures, but you can get those financial figures. They're doing okay, but it's not a private business anymore. It's an equity business. Private equity company that originally bought into it are still there today.
Yeah, interesting. But if you're looking at the $600 million turnover 7 years ago and looking at the growth from the business, you would think that 7 years on, the trajectory showed that it would be $1 billion business anyway, unless something untoward happened.
Well, yeah, but the problem with the business is, and what we've found, and Kevin can expand on this, is basically in the medical device business, we were an agent. We didn't manufacture anything. We had no manufacturing, so we sourced products from throughout the world. The problem with sourcing throughout the world is if you do a very good job, they're okay, they're happy. If you do an in-between job, an average job, they're still not happy. You do a poor job, they're not happy. So it doesn't matter which company you deal with throughout the world, whether it be Japan, whether it be Europe, or whether it be USA, you have to tread a fine line basically with the agent. And some of these agencies were worth $100 million each
And some.
turnover. So that's what you have to treat as an agent. If you manufacture the product, you can control basically the whole process. However, you have competition. And when you're importing product into Australia or New Zealand or other marketplaces, you have to make sure you have that relationship with the principal. If you do not have that relationship with the principal who's manufacturing the product, then you fail considerably.
I think, Michelle, it's worth noting that when we, as the business was maturing, we set the sales and marketing effort up with 4 pillars. And to your question about did something untoward happen, 2 of the pillars fell over in that 7-year period, and the company did an enormous job of rebuilding in that context. But it was a major exercise on the management's part.
Okay. So what were the 4 pillars? Do you recall?
Well, of course I recall. We created them. The pillars were amongst medical surgical specialties. So they may have been an orthopaedic business unit, they may have been a sterilising business unit, a robotics business unit, and a general consumables. And so it was based on the major component of revenue and profit coming into those pillars.
Yeah. I think the key to that is we didn't rely on one area of the business and healthcare to get our income. We had businesses, and businesses come and go. And so when we were gone into robotics and robot technology, we started off very basic with 2 people. Eventually now they have something like 100 people using that particular product.
Yeah. So there's another learning. You recognised early on that you had to diversify, and so orthopedics, cardiovascular, robotics. You talked about sterilising. What about immunology? Hematology, epidemiology, genetics. I mean, was it all the focus just?
We kept our expertise. Our expertise was in medical devices.
Yeah.
The owners basically were from medical device companies. So we knew that business back to front. I'd worked in America, Kevin worked overseas, and John worked in the business here. So we kept our knitting. We knew the medical device area back to front, inside out. We could take on a multinational and beat them. So we kept to our things. Those other areas, basically, we didn't have the expertise. We would have had to buy the expertise in and then develop the expertise. So the expertise we already had.
Yeah.
So just so you know, Michelle, we distinguish in the industry between medical device industry, which could be anything from a syringe to an operating table to a surgical robot. We distinguish that to the pharmaceutical industry, and we distinguish that from the life science business, which would be immunology and assays and whatever. And of course, they're totally foreign businesses to us, pharmaceutical world and the life science world.
Yeah,
One thing I must say though that we did that our competition didn't do. That is basically we trained our clients away from the area of expertise. In other words, if you had a doctor in a hospital who's an orthopaedic surgeon, we used to actually train the doctor on our products in our facility. So they could see our facility, and we had their total experience, total be there in our particular office. Doesn't matter whether it's an orthopaedic surgeon, a cardiac surgeon, whatever. We spent a lot of money on training, and we wouldn't let, for instance, the surgical robot, we wouldn't let a client use the surgical robot unless one of our people were there to monitor the process.
To assist in the training.
Did you lease any of this equipment that do a leasing or a SaaS-based sort of licensing model, or was everything sold to clients?
Well, it was a combination. The whole of healthcare world has changed dramatically over the last 10 or 12 years. And capital budgets now don't exist in mainstream public hospitals in this country anyway. And so everyone has to purchase off balance sheet. And so to purchase capital equipment off balance sheet requires separate funding models. And so we worked with hospital executives on creating those separate funding models so that they could achieve all of their requirements in technology and technology acquisition, but coming out of the day-to-day funding of the hospital.
Yeah. Okay, I just want to transition now more into key learnings and inspiration now that we've got the context of the business, and it's quite clear you played to your strengths, you stayed in your lane, and that's what made it so successful. You diversified, you mitigated your own foreign exchange risk, which did work up until the GFC, right? So I mean, sometimes you're the statue, sometimes you're the pigeon. But so that's the success now. So for the last 4 years, have you guys been working together on another business as a segue from that business, or?
We have a number of businesses. Together we have a number of businesses which we work on. And
Does Michelle think we're lazy or something? Do you think we would become lazy after selling our the largest, most successful independent medical
No.
device company in the region.
Hence the question. It was rhetorical. Clearly you're doing something. So I was teasing it out of you to answer.
Okay, so let me, from my point of view, and Kevin, his point of view, my point of view, I have an interest, I don't run a business anymore, I don't want to run a business, but I have investments in business, and I have another medical device business. I'm on the board of a couple of other medical device companies, which I give counselling to on their board as a board member, a paid board member. So I keep involved in the medical device industry because I think that's healthy for myself and healthy for other people. We also, Kevin and myself, have interest, we're joint shareholders in a number of other businesses, which Kevin can talk about,
Including Coraggio.
including Coraggio.
And we'll definitely get to Coraggio. So sorry, Peter, can I just pull on that thread there? You mentioned you didn't want to be hands-on running a large corporation or business like that again. Is that what you said?
Well, it is, because Kevin and I had a non-compete as well.
Right, of course.
So we had a non-compete, so
For
one of
5
the things,
years.
for 5 years, so one of the reasons was basically to do that, but that's why we diversified into other businesses, like Coraggio and other businesses. But that 5 years has been up, and I had one business which in fact was a condition of sale, that I was allowed to stay with that business and be a board member and also a major shareholder. So the actual purchasers of the business let me do that, okay? Because that was a condition of basically of the sale. Pre-existing condition. So I think, we're interested in medical devices, obviously. We know a lot about it, but we're also interested in running how we run businesses. And that's one of our reasons why we're in Coraggio.
Yeah, no, that's so let's talk about common denominators for Kevin or Peter in terms of what has influenced you as business owners, business leaders, board directors, or non-executive directors, or all the positions that you've had in terms of keys to success, scaling business, challenges, pitfalls. Has there been a particular, it may be mentors, it may be, going with your intuition, it might be upskilling, resourcing, podcasts. Has there been any common thread through your very successful, clearly successful careers and still going successful careers that advice you would give to others, particularly Coraggio members?
There's a lot of business underlying how we conduct ourselves. And I suppose our frustration for those 2 years post the sale was being stifled as entrepreneurs in our own business. And that's also our weakness. As entrepreneurs in business, we very much favour and our interest in entrepreneurial businesses, other entrepreneurial businesses. And that's a weakness as well. And if you sat alongside our private equity partners and we're referring a business to them, they would say, oh, it doesn't meet the 22 times ROI, it doesn't meet this, it doesn't meet this. And we're sitting back going, it's a bloody nice business and we like it. And so we're very much influenced by other entrepreneurial business folk.
Okay.
And that's a strength and a weakness, because if you were to stand alongside your private equity partner making such decisions, they would say no 9 times out of 10. Peter and Kevin would probably say yes 4 times out of 10.
Yeah.
And so it's very difficult to balance that, and particularly when we have decided not to be operational in any of the business we're invested in. We want to be strategic partners. We don't want to be operational.
I think the key for people watching this, I think one of the key is, I always ask people, what is your differentiation of your business? If you're going to go into any importing business, you're going to go into a cafe, you're going to go to any business, how are you going to differentiate yourself from someone else next door or around the corner? If you don't have differentiation, you're going to fight people that don't want to give up their share of that particular part of the business. So the key to me when I'm looking at a business and I'm asking people in a business, what is your differentiation? I use differentiation probably 10 times in a meeting. What is your differentiation? So if you don't have differentiation in a meeting or for your business, then you're going to struggle.
And if you can't enunciate that, then don't come to the meeting, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. I think though, I mean, people say it could be a price point. It could be, you know, we do it faster, we do it better, we do it more competitively, we do, because at the end of the day, I mean, even your products back to, you know, device technology that, you know, your products weren't necessarily the only product, right?
No, but you can make them the only product by basically your training of your sales staff, your training of your people, and basically giving the impression that they are different. And we had very similar products to some of the multinationals, but we beat the multinationals. Why? Because our people believed in what they were selling. They were trained well in what they were selling. They trained the surgeon well in what they were selling. The multinationals sometimes used to go basically to somebody else and say, oh, well, here it is, you know, this company is already back here. And they didn't give the information. Information is critical.
Yeah.
And Michelle, it's a very, it's a really important point that Peter has just made. And when we would argue with the Department of Health in Canberra, the Commonwealth Department of Health, about our rebates for, you know, medical implants or surgical implants, and so if we bought something in for $50 and sold it for $100, that would be the minimum that we would have to make on any of the products that we were selling. That's a 50% GP. And so we would never declare what our margin was, but the TGA had a damn good insight into what was selling around the globe at certain values, at certain economies, and at certain exchange rates. And so we would argue you don't just move a box from the US to a warehouse in Sydney and send the box out to the hospital in the eastern suburbs. We would have a whole team behind that box. We'd have a whole team in the hospital in the eastern suburbs, supporting the surgical team, training them, assisting their procedures, and on and on and on. And those costs are hidden costs in business. But if you're going to incur those costs, then your margins need to be very high. Otherwise, you're just a box mover.
So that's eroding your profit because you're investing in the training. So I guess a nice way to put it from what I've understood is that you weren't selling a product. You're actually selling a service.
Yeah.
We were selling a service also, we're basically training people and giving them an understanding of the science behind the product.
Yeah,
which
that's right.
Didn't do. You need to understand the science behind the product, especially if you're talking to a doctor who's doing an orthopedic procedure. He needs to know the science behind that product before he puts it to
So there's one thing selling a centrifuge, but there's another thing giving them a demo and the training and explaining the settings and the calibrations and how it's got to spin and blah, blah, blah. And so it's not just a product, it's a turnkey solution.
A turnkey solution.
Yeah, and that was your point of differentiation, and that's why your margins would erode a little bit, which is why, as Kevin just said, your margins had to be higher because you had to allow for that.
We had a training centre basically in our business, and the training centre accommodated doctors, accommodated nurses, accommodated anyone that basically used equipment. And the people would come out of the hospital, come to our training centre and train on the products. They became our salespeople.
Yeah. So I guess in this business, which is primarily clear, I can hear the passion in your voice, and I know you're both very passionate about Coraggio as well. How important has it been to you to be surrounded by the right people? And with John's passing, did you replace John as a mentor or leveraging his intelligence? I mean, you mentioned earlier on that you were three different personalities, but you stayed in your lane and you all complemented each other. Was there a gap that needed to be filled, not just an emotional gap, obviously, with John's passing, but in terms of the skill sets he brought to the table?
Yeah, that's another good question, Michelle. Look, John had retired some 10 years before he died. And so Peter and I were running the show for most of the company's life. And so what was critical to our success was having each other. That was absolutely critical. And when we compared notes with those around us, either those supplying product to us, either those buying product from us, and this comes back to the question about Coraggio. And I've never, ever forgotten that statement, how it's lonely at the top, really lonely at the top, unless you just happen to have a business partner, and unless you can trust that business partner, and unless you can have fun with that business partner. And they're critical ingredients to our success. Now, We know that most of our Karagian members don't have that and don't have that opportunity, and therefore that loneliness at the top is the whole benefit of Karagio, to share every aspect of that loneliness in your monthly meeting with your colleagues and peers. And you know, that was part of the reason, a big part of the reason Peter and I took that position. We did a majority position in the company with Craig Caesar, and we did so on that basis because we have firm belief in providing support to the executive of entrepreneurial businesses in particular is so significant, so important, and there's not many other places they can get it.
No.
There's one other thing with that. 25 to 30 years ago, 30% of our staff female. 30%. That was unusual in those days. And why was it? But partly because I think of management, and partly, but basically what we saw what the market wanted. The market wanted also a female influence, especially if you go into a hospital, it was the nurses. The nurses were nurses. You know, there were very few male nurses, they were female nurses. They wanted to hear from female. They wanted to basically have that transition period. Whereas a lot of our competitors were all male dominated, completely male dominated.
Oh, okay.
So we were ahead of the times by 10 years.
Yeah, you're the founding fathers of diversity.
You're the founding fathers of diversity, absolutely.
Well, at one stage, Michelle, to Peter's point, about 20 years ago, the entire management was female. The entire management, the senior management.
From CFO down. The CFO was a female, Emma Cleary, and Director of Sales and Marketing was Alex Jarvis. So right through the senior management was all female.
I think it's commendable that, I mean, it is a great story, really. I mean, have either of you thought about writing a biography?
No. It's funny you say that because I've just spoke to someone who was my John Akhurst, who when I first came to Sydney, I've been in the medical device business all my life. He was my boss and he's writing a book about it. In fact, we were on the phone today. So I said to him, all the inspiration, all the things that you did initially, basically you have to write down because otherwise it's lost. And just today, I spoke to him today and I've got a page I gave to Kevin about basically what happened in those days, because I think it's critical that people know what went on and where you're going to go for the future.
And that is a great question. So I ask you, I know you're, tremendously busy, and it's commendable now, but where do you see the next 2 to 3 to 5 years for you guys?
Well, it's we've now got the gloves off, so to speak, in our access to the medical device world. And so we continue to look at the US market, we continue to look at the UK and European markets, and less so perhaps the Australian New Zealand market, because we don't want to muddy the waters with our old company. And prior to the sale, Peter and I had already set up a business unit in the US of A and also in the UK. And we're thinking of revisiting those businesses, and we have friends and colleagues in all of those markets, and we regularly meet. In fact, we meet every year in Hawaii over a golf week. And so all medical device people and all still keen to stay involved in the industry. So
I think that's a critical thing too, going through basically a lot of people, we kept our competitors really close. We played golf about 2 months ago, and the CEOs of 4 of the major medical device companies, these are billion-dollar companies, but playing golf with us. And why they played golf with us? Because we treated them fairly. We didn't treat them as, but we kept them close. Why do we keep them close? We want to know what the multinationals were doing, and basically so we can improve our product and our offering. So it's critical. A lot of people say, I don't talk to the competitor. That is the biggest mistake you can make. You have to talk to the competitor all the time. Keep the competitor close. You're not doing intelligence. You're just basically keeping the competition close. You're learning about the marketplace, and you're going to be ahead of the marketplace when it comes.
Look, and I think especially in like medical devices, which is all about health and longevity and well-being, that, it's collaboration for community benefit. And so you need to look to be seeing and ethically to be working together. There's a piece of a pie. Some might get a bigger slice than others, but at the end of the day, there's enough to go around. And so that collaboration and that attitude of, leaving something on the table for the next person and playing fair and with integrity. I mean, that's where it's got you to where you are today.
Well, as I said, the people that we play golf with ran billion-dollar companies in medical devices. It doesn't, I won't say who they are, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out who they are. So the three biggest medical device companies are friends of ours, so we play golf with them. We played a month ago.
That's amazing. So let's just touch base a bit more on Coraggio. Courageous, objective advice. We know Coraggio is Italian for courage, and it was it came out of the GFC with the shareholders coming together, bringing together, leveraging intelligence, cross-pollinating, and as you say, it's lonely at the top and having that support networks and keeping each other accountable. The growth of Coraggio, I mean, the thousands of businesses over 11 years now that Coraggio has supported, and being the founding fathers of Coraggio, the original shareholders, amongst others, how does that make you feel in terms of, in your career and in your journey? That, I mean, obviously, it's not the commercial investment like selling medical devices, but it's purpose beyond profit. So it's about doing the right thing, and it's not about making the money, and the shareholders don't take a dividend, I understand. So how has that journey made you guys feel in your career that you've been part of something so significant for more than a decade?
I just need to correct the record there, Michelle, in that Peter and Craig Caesar are two of a dozen founding shareholders of Coraggio. I'm a more recent shareholder, having been there for maybe 5 years now.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
No, but it's significant for me, even though it's only 5 years. But Peter can address, I'm sure, he'd be wanting to address, that 11 years. He's seen half of those companies come and go. He's contributed to the events that are happening in Coraggio for all of those years, and he and several of the foundation shareholders were travelling through Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and speaking to each of the chairs and to the cabs, and making sure that they were feeling the love. And as you have noted, we've never taken a dividend from Coraggio. Would we like one? Yes, we would, but we're still investing in the business to make sure that member benefits are maintaining the priority that we give them. So, Pete, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, Coraggio, basically, I'm not a chair, I'm just a member. I'm a member of CAB 1. I think every time I come away from a CAB 1 meeting with 13 or 14 people there, I learn something. So I think it's a very lonely place at the top of business. If you run a business on your own, it's an extremely lonely place. So who do you talk to? It's very hard sometimes to talk to your partner. It's very hard to talk, your life partner. It's very hard to talk to your children. So who do you talk to? I can't talk to the bank. So I think Coraggio offers a confidential area where people can come along, speak about their issues. It could be private issues, it could be business issues, it could be all sorts of issues with confidentiality. I think that's what's missing in the marketplace sometimes, and I think that's what Coraggio gives to our members. I think we can expand that. I think, the issue we have in Coraggio at the moment is we want basically people to be committed to the Coraggio name and the Coraggio business. It's no good thinking Coraggio it's going to be a half day. You have to have a whole day because you've got to be able to expand your businesses. And it's a bit like expanding to your business. If you have a business partner, you've got to give them half a day a week.
Yeah, no, that would never. It would never work. It's got to be a full committed, because psychologically, you've committed that day to that. So not I'm going back to work so it actually changes even if it was half a day, it changes that the thinking in that half day.
Coraggio is not for everybody. It's not for everybody, quite frankly. Some people say, look, I don't get out of Coraggio. I said, that's fine, work out what you want in your business and go after it. Coraggio is not for everybody, but for the businesses, I believe between probably 2 million and 100 million, it's an ideal scenario. Is there competition out there? Of course there's competition, but Coraggio has a little bit more selection, basically, the people we put in, and also the confidentiality of what they're trying to achieve. That's probably one of the hardest things in business. How do you maintain the confidentiality, however, get that message across to people that can advise you what you want to do? A lot of people have a consultant in a business that's one person's point of view. Sometimes that one person could be wasted time and money. It could be $2,000 in a way wasted. So with Couragio, what you have is you have 6, 8, up to 15 people in that room, and at least of those 15 people, 5 will give you expert advice because of from various businesses. There could be an accountant there, there could be a lawyer there could be a business owner there, there could be all sorts of people that can give you that advice. What we do at Couragio, and I find for myself, I go away, next month I come back, and I want to know if we haven't, we've given some advice to remember, what did you do? And they have to advise us, what did you do? If they said they did nothing, we say, that's not an accountability. It's got to be accountable. Just like running a business. If you're CEO of the business, you're the managing director, you have to be accountable for the business, for whether it's 4 employees or 4,000 employees. Couragio is no different.
But also, if I can just add to that, Michelle, is, it's pretty significant when you consider about that sharing. And Peter said it's not for everyone. But the success of Couragio membership is all about giving and taking. And if you're the member that only wants to take, then please don't sign up. And that CAB only operates and works well and efficiently under the guidance of an experienced chair, but also with a membership that gives and takes. And that's why it takes a day, because you've got to ask for help and you've got to provide help.
Yeah, yeah. It is that give and take dynamic that makes it unique. And I also, again, it's the psychological bond that they create together, because when you help someone, you become more committed, emotionally attached to their cause. And when they help you in return, you feel this sense of, companionship between each other. So it is that give and take dynamic. And in addition to what goes on in the CAB days, of course, there's great industry public speakers, keynote speakers, credible opinion speakers on a diverse array of topics, whether it be finance, Paul Bloxham, economist. So, they're also getting the latest up-to-date trends and industry shifts from some of the latest, we've got Bill Evans coming up, some of the great speakers that come in to the boards and impart their knowledge, which is invaluable.
Yeah. One thing we used to do, I think, which is critical for Couragio members, that is basically we get the staff together. We had 3 staff, we had 300 staff. We get them together every fortnight or minimum of 3 weeks. We'd have a meeting for 15, 20 minutes. And we paint the picture of the future, because people want a future. They don't want what happened today. If we had a bad week or bad sales for this month or this quarter, so what? We'd paint the picture, and Kevin and I would get up there, we'd share it together. We'd paint the picture of where we're going in the future, so people had aspirations to where they were going. That did 2 things. One basically gave them aspirations. Secondly, basically, is in the marketplace, we didn't have to pay top dollar. Why? Because people came to us because they came to us for a job, because they heard that Device Technologies were the most innovative head company in the marketplace. And that we didn't have to go and recruit people, have to put ads in the paper. People came to us. So you must always, whether a company of 3 people or 300 people, you must get the people together and tell them where you're going and what you're going to be doing. That's invaluable to them and to you as well.
Yeah, so what you just described is visualization. And it's funny that you said we were 10 years ahead of everyone else, and diversity with women, and this painting the picture, which is visualization, which is really only a buzzword that's come out in the last few years. You guys really were ahead of your time back then, weren't you? You were doing things back then that everyone's doing now, but you kind of did kickstart a lot of that movement and a lot of those processes and a lot of that thinking. And like you said earlier, your gut feeling was, it's a good business. It didn't matter if the P&L on the balance sheet or the EBIT wasn't exactly spot on, but you went with your sense. So you are pioneers in a way. And that's the interesting story. As you're talking, I can see these common threads that are coming through, and possibly even you don't see that you were actual pioneers back then, because when I hear you speak now, those things weren't around when you started them up over a decade ago or 30 years ago.
Well, I think also, just to add to that, is some people say, I own the business, and I'll take a partner, I'll give the partner 10% of the business or whatever it may be. we had strengths as partners. We're equal partners in the business. Kevin had his strengths, I had my strengths, John had his strengths. The combination of those strengths, no one could beat us. Nobody could beat us. We just knew they couldn't beat us. Why? Because with the strength of one area over there, we had the strength in this area, we had the strength here. You combine those strengths together, powerful. You try to find someone who's got all those strengths running a business, it's very, very difficult.
Well, it's the same analogy. It's the same analogy as you just made, Peter. You know, you can get an advisor or a mentor or a coach that's one opinion, one person, you know, one lot of learning, maybe international experience or national, but you get like-minded entrepreneurs and business owners around a table. You're getting, you know, 12 to 15 points of view, 12 to 15 opinions. And it's the same as what you're saying now. So you all stayed in your lane, but you all brought something to the table in terms of skill sets. So let me ask you, since you keep you do mention you like to have fun, but Kevin, I'll ask you, and I'll ask Peter as well. Kevin, what's Peter's number one strength as in business? Not his golf, not his handicap, nothing personal, but what is Peter's strength after 30 plus years of being in business with each other?
Vision.
Okay, your turn, Peter. What's Kevin's?
I think a combination. Kevin also has vision, but Kevin is very good on detail. And I think you need the detail to back up the vision. If you don't have the detail, basically you can make mistakes. Luckily, we didn't make too many mistakes, but if you don't have detail to combine with the vision, I think that can be very dangerous.
So what I'm feeling is that Peter's the creator and Kevin's the consolidator. And whenever you get and that doesn't mean Kevin's not creative, and that does not mean, Peter, you don't look at the numbers. But I'm saying whenever you put a creator with a consolidator together, it's a powerful combination.
Hard to be beaten, quite frankly.
I'll accept that.
I think I'm going to call this the pioneers, creator and consolidator, founding forefathers or something. Anyway, never mind. I'll leave that to me.
Before you go, I want to read something out of this book, which I want to show to every member. It's called Marketing Warfare.
Just hold it up there, Michelle.
Marketing Warfare. Every member.
You got that on the video?
Thank you. Got that. Thank you. Yes.
There's three things I want to write. I don't know whether to do it now or later on.
No, do it now. Do it now.
Okay, this is on page. It's called Principles of Guerrilla Warfare. I believe in guerrilla warfare because if you're starting a business, basically you're a guerrilla. You haven't got all the business. You have to act like a guerrilla. To be a guerrilla, basically in the Philippines, and trying to attack a force, attacking a major force. What do? The first thing of this. In this, I'm just reading out from the book. It says, guerrilla principle number 1, find a segment of the market small enough to defend. Think about that. Find a segment small enough to defend. A lot of people go and say, I'll take on Coca-Cola. Hello? Are they kidding? The second thing is guerrilla principle number 2. No matter how successful you become, never act like a leader. A lot of people say, oh, I'm the best in the business, I'm the leader of the business. You know, as soon as they start doing that, they're going to be attacked. So this says, no matter how successful you become, never act like the leader.
So that's the opposite to gorillas, that the leaders pound their chests. So you're saying don't do that.
Don't pound your chest. You don't need to, if you're there, you don't need to pound your chest. No need to do that.
Yep.
And the guerrilla principle number 3, be prepared to bug out at a moment's notice. In other words, sometimes you'll make good decisions or the market will change. Don't wait until the market changes and it's too late. Make a decision, on good information and bug out rather than stay in. A lot of companies I've seen stayed into a business. We took advantage of that because we had a new product, basically, and the new product took over and they were too slow to bug out.
Right, yeah.
And that's from this book. Everyone should have this book.
That's amazing. And sorry, the name of the author?
The author is L. Ries, R-I-E-S, and Jack Trout, T-R-O-U-T. You can buy it online.
I will definitely be doing that.
It's really, really good.
Yeah.
Marketing warfare.
Are there any other resources, books, podcasts, or mentors for Kevin or yourself, Peter, that have served you well over the years, apart from each other and John?
I've got a succession of them, Michelle. Do you want me to refer to the bibliography or do you?
I guess what I'm trying to get at is that how important it has been as part of the success of your journey and the trajectory of your careers, leaning on or leveraging on advice from people
Yes.
you could turn to that you trust, i.e. mentors or whatever you want to call them. I don't care. How
Critical.
important? Yeah,
It's critical. I had 3 or 4 mentors. Basically, I'd meet with those mentors. They used to come to the business. Kevin knows most of the mentors, the 3 or 4.
Yeah.
In fact, one of them, Bill Mackerel, was a chair of Coraggio.
Founding shareholder.
A founding shareholder of Coraggio.
Oh, that wasn't Hugh Mackenzie.
No, Bill Mackerel.
Oh, Paul okay, gotcha.
No, Bill Mackerel.
Bill Mackerel. And Bill was a founding member of, he used to be with another competition, and he came over when we came over as Coraggio. Bill was my mentor, and he ran a business, a very large business, and he was a mentor. I had about 4 mentors, and I'd meet those mentors once every 2 months, 3 months, and they were invaluable to what I wanted. So I would suggest everyone has some sort of mentor. You have to choose your mentors carefully. The mentors basically don't tell you how to run the business. They listen to you and they say, well, from my experience, this is what I would have done.
Yeah.
Next time you come back and meet that mentor, the mentor should say, what did you do? And if you said nothing, that's fine. You said, this is what I did, but you've got to have an answer to that mentor.
Yeah, no, that's right. And Coraggio plays that function.
Coraggio plays that function. It's got to play that function more, but Coraggio plays that function because if you have a proper group, basically, they should be asking you, what did you do?
Yeah.
And if you say, I don't know, then come back next month and tell me what you do want to know.
Yeah, or what data, if you're data poor, you can't make a decision, what data, what research, qualitative or quantitative, do you need to go and capture to be able to know?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's the same for me. I've had a group of succession of mentors, but also we think that the accountability is considerable. When Peter and I appointed a non-executive board at our device technologies company of 5 very, very experienced, top end of town business folk, and their role was to keep us accountable. And because when we would sit there with our officers sitting next to each other with the sliding glass door and window between us, it was easy for us to keep doing what we were doing. But on those monthly meetings, we had to be accountable for what we have done.
Yeah.
And so the thing that we also like about Coraggio, it's not past tense. It's you may have done that and you may have achieved that. What are you going to do? And that's the accountability that I've always appreciated, because you've got to hang something out there. And if you hang it out there, then you need to be accountable for that. What did you do about it? Did you achieve it? Did you go again? Did you alter course? And so forth.
Yeah.
I've got two things to answer here for you on my list. Can I get them to you now?
I'd love you to. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, the first one says, life well lived. How would you define a life well lived? I've got family, friends, and outside influences. They're the things to me that you can make 1,000 things, but family, I think, is number one. Friends is critical, and outside influences. You've got to listen to outside influences. That's the first thing. And the second one is, if you could give any advice to the future of young leaders, what would you share? First, the 3 things I would share would be patient. A lot of people in business want to buy a Ferrari the first month they're in business. Wrong. The second thing is you have to work hard. Doesn't matter who you are. If you don't want to work hard, then you shouldn't be in your business.
Yeah.
And the third thing that we did a lot of times is we reinvested a profit. We didn't take the profit away immediately. We invested a product to grow the business. And that was critical for us. So I think Kevin mentioned that previously. What do? We had to go and reinvest the profit. Profit later on can come, but in the early stages of the business, probably the first 5 to 10 years, you have to reinvest a product to grow the business if you want to grow the business.
Yeah, and that's effectively what the shareholders are doing with Coraggio, is they're reinvesting the money back into the member benefits to get tangible benefits. It's the same thing.
We're still doing it.
And Michelle, it took me 25 years to buy that Ferrari.
He's got 3. He's got 3.
Now you're just showing off. So there's another one I wanted to ask you, Peter, as well, that you didn't highlight just now, if I may, and Kevin. So for you referenced, you know, that's important to, you know, work hard and be considered and, you know, reinvest in the business. But for any young people, as you mentioned, or future leaders, where do you see the growth? What would get you licking your lips if an opportunity came past you in terms of growth, where the growth industries are in the next 3 to 5 years?
Look, I think there's no doubt that we lived through an era when we all thought that IT would rule the roost. And, you know, from that first investment in an IT manager and the first investment in all of the backup systems, and all that did was frustrate the hell out of us. And I'm not saying anything against IT folk or IT systems. Some of our best Coraggio members have wonderful IT businesses. However, to your question, I think engineering will rule the roost in the next 5 to 10 years, and engineering-based responses to technology, responses to growth opportunities that you're asking about. I think if there is any technology around with an engineering base and an engineering drive to success of that business, then, you know, I would be looking very closely at investment in such businesses.
Oh, so that's more mechanical engineering as opposed to civil, which is infrastructure, though?
No, not necessarily. There's lots of engineering, of course, but I'm talking about engineering per se is not just construction of something. It's also using mathematics as a way of calculating how things will look and how things will go. And it's also about rigid application of systems and processes. And Peter and I, it was the weirdest thing that happened in our business, Michelle. Queensland government demanded we had to have you know, systems that were in place so that we could conform to standards, specific standards of supply or whatever. Yep. And so we invested in compliance with standards, and we ended up getting compliance managers in our business. And Peter and I hated it. We just hate having to do it. We hate employing those people initially. We hated every aspect about the whole concept of process and procedure. When we were entrepreneurial and we'd be out here and over there and all the rest of it. But 25 years later, policies and procedures underwrote the success of the business.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
Engineering will play a big part in that in the future, in my opinion.
That I can understand Peter hating that because he's the creator, but as the consolidator, I think having those systems and processes, but you're right, it's like a below the line cost, and it's very frustrating, isn't it? You feel like you're just putting a tick in a box, due process and systems and operational efficiencies. Very frustrating. Sorry, Kevin, while you're on a flow, can I just circle back? Peter very kindly answered the question about how you define a life well lived, and he mentioned family and friends and outside influences, and he was pulling on the thread of having good mentors and people around you. Would you answer that question similarly, or do you have a different?
I'd echo it entirely.
Yeah, so this is why you two are like a duo.
Well, the duo, by the way, our children grew up together. Oh. Our children are mates, and of course, you know, my children are well and truly into their 30s with grandchildren, same as Peter's, and they're all still mates. So, you know, our lives were entwined and still are.
I'll just go back one thing. Differentiation. That should be taught to every Coraggio member. How are you going to differentiate yourself? Whether you're a person, if you're going to a nightclub, how are you going to differentiate yourself from all those 100 other people there? If you want to differentiate in the business, you have to differentiate. What are you different? You have different hair color, or what do you do in your business which will differentiate yourself from your competition? If you can't answer that, you can't answer anything.
Yeah. You know, the old adage, Peter, you know, you were born unique, don't die a copy.
Exactly. Yeah, there we go.
So I just one very quick question for both of you. I know I'm cognizant of the time, and we've
We've
gone.
got plenty of time.
Oh
I
yeah, I got that.
don't have to walk the dogs till 4:45.
Oh yeah, I walk my dogs too, but we get yeah, the sun sets a bit later up in Queensland. But if you can both finish this question with one or two or three words. Okay, I'll start with you, Kevin. Kevin is a person who.
Was it written down previously for us? 3 words.
No, it could be one word. It could be 10 words.
Kevin is a person who likes to achieve and likes to do those things that I measure success in and achievement in, still today.
That's so. My mentor, the late great Sir Bruce Watson, said to me, Shelley, the key to success and to life is to do the things you like more, and the things you like less.
Okay?
Okay. Peter is a person who.
It's not as dumb as he looks and as far as others.
No, I can't print that. You got to give me something else better.
It's not as dumb as he looks, or not as stupid as he looks, and inspires others. Peter inspires others.
Yeah, I think that's true.
You can put it in dumb as you look as you like. It's my mother called me dumb. I've never forgotten.
I love that. I don't know if that's politically correct. Okay, no, that's great. All right. Is there anything else that either of you gentlemen would like to share?
You just have a look through the notes.
Before, yeah, look at the notes. I mean, obviously, I've got to go away and pull this together into some.
Now, you've got a question here. You've got a question, so you've got a question here about better efficiencies equate to getting things faster. What are your tips? My tips are basically customer knowledge,
Yeah.
IT, and a team environment.
Yeah. So what about operational efficiencies though, Peter?
Well, that goes into IT, quite frankly.
Yep. Yep. Kevin, did you want to add anything to that one?
No, I would like to say, Michelle, on record, that you may have missed your calling. You are excellent at doing these interviews, and your questions are right on target all the way.
Thank you. That's I can't tell you how appreciative I am to get. They say feedback is the breakfast of champions, so I appreciate that, Kevin.
I've got one more question to answer. It says, do you think there's a certain character trait to cultivate success in business and life?
Yeah.
Yes, don't be greedy.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, don't leave something on the table for the next person, right?
Don't be greedy. There's a lot of greedy people in business and in life. And we've met people, but in life, quite frankly, that are greedy, basically. They have a lot of money, they don't know what to do with it, and they're miserable.
If we talked about being born an original and not dying a photocopy, pulling on Peter's thread about point of differentiation and a unique value proposition, etc. But if you were looking down at yourself at your passing, and what legacy would you like to leave behind for your loved ones and future generations? How would you like to be remembered? Apart from being inspirational, is there another way, Peter, you would like to think that you would be remembered as you pass on from this realm to the next realm, whatever that is?
I've got one word. I think I'm kind.
Oh, I think you're kind as well.
I do. I think in general life, you see some people there. I think generally, I think I'm kind. Certainly I've had 2 marriages, one 20 years, one 25 years. I still talk to those wives. In fact, one I talked to yesterday, and I get on well. But I think life life goes through changes. But I think overall, if someone said, "What do you think about Peter?" I'd say he's a pretty kind sort of person.
That's beautiful, and I've no doubt that's exactly what people will say. Well, I for one will say that, but I'll probably die before you. How about you, Kevin? What's your legacy that you'd like to be remembered for or leave?
It's probably something I wouldn't really wish to discuss.
Oh, that's okay.
I think my legacy is already in place, and if I die tomorrow, I'm happy with what that legacy looks like.
Oh, well, that's beautiful, and that's right. I mean, that is right, because if you, by the time we get to our age, if you haven't set the platform for that legacy, I wouldn't say it's too late, but it means the foundation hasn't been laid to build.
You're right, absolutely.
And
Right,
don't
so-
put yourself in our age category, Michelle.
Oh no, I think I've got a birthday next week. I'm catching up to you, gentlemen. Don't worry.
I doubt it.
All right. Well, I would like to thank you both for being generously bequeathing your time and your insights and your valuable knowledge. And it's just all part of that give and take dynamic and giving back. And you already give so much to the Karajian community and the broader entrepreneurial business leader community. And your story about Device Technologies, I mean, the journey from Device Technologies, because it's not a narrative, it's factual, I do think belongs in a biography. But that is an incredible story, and I think you have been pioneers. And I think I'm sure whatever it is that you're working on now will also be, anything you touch is going to be successful, because you've got that lovely creator consolidator thing going on, and you're both very humble and kind and inspiring. So on behalf of Coragio, which is silly saying it to you because you're the shareholders, but I usually say to the speaker, thank you for giving back to the Karajian community. And offering your courageous, objective advice. I'm giving you the sales that I give to the other people.
As Kevin said, you're on the wrong thing. You should be on TV.
Oh no, I have a face for radio.
You should be on 7:30 report. You know, like you should be there. You didn't alter, shouldn't you? You should be on 7:30. By the way, just to let you know too, my two son-in-laws work for Device Technologies.
Oh, that's lovely. Well, there's your succession planning right there.
I didn't do that. No, they decided to go there. Had nothing to do with it.
That's beautiful. I mean, that shows that they want to follow in your footsteps, and I think that's beautiful. That's a great addition.
Don't forget that book. That book you should recommend it.
I'm going to Google it right now, and
read it. So good.
I'll give you one. I don't know if you've read The Monk Who, speaking of Ferraris, Kevin, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma. Have you read that?
No.
Oh,
what's it called? The Monk Who what?
The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. I'm about halfway through it. I think it's Dr. Robin with an I, and I'm pretty sure it's Sharma, Sharma. And
It's nothing to do with that Sharma that did the Indian jail thing and
no, but it's the same Sharma that worked out. If you can go online, and I worked out based on my age that if I was to live to 100, which with my hedonistic lifestyle, I have zero intention of that happening. But hypothetically, if I was to live to 100 based on my age now, I only have 324 months remaining.
Oh, you know, that's good for you. But, you know, when you're talking, I'm 78, so when I'm talking 100.
But you've got longevity in medical research, and you could live to 120, Peter.
My mum lived to 102, so I'm going to aim for that.
Well done, yeah. So Dr. Robin Sharma also talks about longevity, but the monk who sold his Ferrari is, not that I'm suggesting you sell any one of your 3 Ferraris, Kevin, but it is a very, well, I'm only halfway through, but it's an inspirational read. So Quid Pro Quo, that's my book to you. I'm going to Google your book to me. And again, marketing warfare. And so thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
I've got one more piece of advice for you.
Oh, please.
Okay, for the life that you've got left, it's quality of life, not the quantity.
No, 100%.
The quality of life.
And it won't be on TV because I have a face for radio.
Okay. No, I reckon you'll be able to do it on TV.